Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted the number 1 would be Barbie, number 2 would be Oppenheimer, number 3 would be Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, number 4 would be Sound of Freedom, and number 5 would be Insidious The Red Door. And I only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend, for this Barbenheimer weekend release. And everyone else in the comments, they made the same mistake I did, which was not assuming that the worst thing ever could happen to one Tom Cruise. But let's go over what happened in the overall top 10. This was a pretty historic weekend. I believe the record is this is the 4th highest earning weekend of all time. It's up there. This is one of the best weekends we've gotten for film. So number 1 was of course Barbie, kind of over exceeding expectations compared to where it was kind of estimated to be at a couple weeks ago. They were kind of going maybe 70, potentially 80. And here we have the opening, the 3-day opening of $155 million. This of course is on a budget of $145 million. So it already looks fantastic. Okay, you made 10 million more than the budget. That's great. But then when you look at the worldwide total and see, oh, they're at $337 million right now. They have already doubled that budget. They're probably going to, triple, quadruple it next weekend, maybe even make 5 times that. So that is so exciting, for this movie. And I know some people may be like, well, it's based off of a toy. What do you mean? I think the main difference is that this isn't a movie that was it's not Mario, and not to trash on Mario too much, because I did like Mario, but that was a very safe kind of everything felt very calculated, okay, this is going to, get us the most amount of money. And there are movies that are very safe and calculated like Mario, but do it way worse, or don't have the same kind of attachment to audiences that Mario does, you know what I mean? And Mario's not a bad movie, you know what I mean? I found it was decent. This is one that's it's got people talking, it's really connecting to a lot of people, not just women, even though that is the core demographic, and obviously market a movie towards women, you will get a lot of them in as well. But this is something that's starting conversations, it connects with many people. It's not, despite what Ben Shapiro may want to tell you, it is not anti-men. It pokes fun in it. It has satire. It has a message. It's just a really all-around really good movie that has people talking, that has that connection. And the fact that it was paired up with Oppenheimer and people were making memes out of it, and that really blew up. It all went into having just a really stellar opening weekend where it did better than expected here, which is fantastic. And if we can go over some other stats as well before we go over something else, it is the highest opening weekend for a female director ever. This is Greta Gerwig. It's not just her highest opening weekend for her films, it is the highest opening weekend for any film from a female director, which kind of goes to show you it's almost like a depressing statistic that there haven't been more opportunities for women to be in these positions. But it is also kind of exciting to see Greta Gerwig in this position now, you know what I mean? Let alone the fact that this is the highest opening of 2023. It outdid Mario by 9 million. That's one thing, but but to then have that kind of label for you for at least a while, I do wonder if there will be another woman director who can take that title from Greta as far as highest opening weekend. But still, to have that is just that must be so special, and it's pretty amazing. I'm sure that'll get people talking. The huge box office success is marketing alone. That'll keep people talking. Nobody care. I will point out the statistic, but nobody cares that it's the biggest opening for a toy movie. But I'm sure some people will really care that it's the biggest opening weekend for not just Ryan Gosling, but also Margot Robbie, who has been in comic book movies and DC stuff. Barbie is her highest opening weekend, which is kind of stellar, for Greta Gerwig's filmography. Domestically, it has outgrossed Lady Bird by 107 million and Little Women by 47 million, and then worldwide, that total being 337, it has already outgrossed Lady Bird by 257 million and Little Women by 119 million there. This is just all around really great news, and it's kind of interesting. I do wonder how next weekend it will be, but with kind of a lack of competition, not to diss on Haunted Mansion or Talk to Me, but I don't think that's really much competition considering the word of mouth going in and how these numbers just really exploded based off of, the previous projections. I think this will hold over fairly well. I don't think this is going to be a 60% or, damn near 70% drop. I think this will hold over pretty strong and will continue to make so much money, which is kind of exciting. Not because I want to see more IPs. I want to see more of the Mattel, brands come to life. But it's just really exciting because this is a movie that has someone at the helm, Greta Gerwig, who also co-wrote the script with Noah Baumbach, they had a vision for this movie, and they took that opportunity and made something that was special instead of something, once again, not to diss on Mario, but something like Mario that was kind of like, all right, well, I enjoyed it in the moment, but I'm not going to think about it all that much afterwards. This is one that, has been with me for a while. I literally saw it again today, and it's like, yeah, it's still just as good. And now if we can roll right on into number 2, which was indeed Oppenheimer. I'm glad I at least got those two right, prediction-wise. We'll talk about more upsets in a little bit. But this one, the estimates before were like, okay, like kind of a modest, like maybe 50 million, something like that. It's going up against Barbie, so who knows? But literally just the Barbenheimer wave of meme culture and just hype from film fans in general, and just people talking about these two movies releasing on the same day. We, got to do a double feature. It's spontaneous. That's the best kind of like success, is when it's kind of spontaneous and no one can really predict that happening. This was kind of like seen as like, oh, it's a rivalry. Maybe Barbie's going to take more money than Oppenheimer, but instead the opposite happened. It was beneficial. Oppenheimer went on to open with $80 million this weekend, which is, according to stats, it is the biggest R-rated opening domestically ever since 2019's Joker, which was $96 million. Earlier this year, John Wick 4 had that with $73 million, but by $8 million it has squeaked over that, which is pretty damn impressive. It is the third highest opening weekend for Nolan, behind Dark Knight Rises' $160 million and The Dark Knight's $158 million. And for Christopher Nolan's filmography, it is outgrossed following by $80 million, $55 million over Memento, $13 million over Insomnia, $27 million over Prestige, and $22 million over Tenet. Kind of obvious because that was a COVID release, and it only needs $108 million until it outgrosses Interstellar. And similar to Barbie, I don't see this movie really slowing down or like getting like a huge drop off. I really do feel like, because of the word of mouth from both, they have great audience and critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes. The cinema score, both films are A's, and the fact that they did open so well and people are talking about it so much, and Oppenheimer even has some people discussing it. It's not just a movie that I'm seeing once. It was maybe fine in the moment, but I'm going to forget. It has people talking. People are thinking back on it. I'm seeing some people do like the double feature first and then do it again. Like, do you know how rare it is for like some casual audiences to see movies twice, let alone a double feature? But that's what they're doing, and that's pretty damn impressive. Worldwide, it is sitting at $174 million, which allegedly, which is kind of shocking. The budget for this is $100 million according to Wikipedia, and who knows, maybe there's some additional costs, but in Nolan we trust, and I believe he delivered this incredible movie with that low a budget. I could totally believe that. So looking at this number, it only needs $26 million to actually then double it, and then, because I don't think it's going to slow down, it'll then triple that, maybe quadruple it even. It'll be interesting to see where it ends up, but right now for Nolan, it is outgrossed Falling by $174 million, Memento by $135 million, Insomnia $61 million, and The Prestige by $70 million, and now needs $182 million until it outgrosses Batman Begins. So it just needs to outgross those Batman films. But the fact that this is like Nolan's like best opening for any of his films that aren't Batman related. As I pointed out with the domestic numbers, Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises are his highest. So it was, Oppenheimer probably was never going to top that. Batman Begins is a little easier to go over, but the fact that this is going over all of his other original films and even like, other films like Dunkirk, that's pretty damn impressive, especially for a movie that is a biography that is 3 hours long and also rated R. Sometimes our rated R movies can, affect how many people you bring in because it's not a family film. Barbie, I wouldn't even say that's like, it's not a kid's film, but you could bring a family to it, That's the kind of movie Barbie is. I've seen some people maybe get confused by that as far as like, what kind of movie Barbie is and the reception to it. It's not a kid's, it's not Trolls, it's not the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So it's just a really fantastic weekend. It's very exciting, and it makes you really think, man, studios are really going to cancel their fall lineups, their film festival stuff, just so they can not give in to pretty reasonable demands from SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild of America. Do you see how excited people are about going to the movies and how much money you're going to be making? Everyone's going to be making just because of this success? That is bullshit. I won't talk about the strikes, too much more, but seriously, just pay the writers, pay the actors. Don't take them over with AI, you fucking morons. Let's move on to number 3, which was the big upset, and I checked through all the comments and nobody got it right, because how could you predict it? Sound of Freedom, once again, barely dropping, just like another 20 to 30% drop. It made $20 million this weekend, which adds to a domestic total of $124 million. So I'm going to skip right over this so I can talk to the one I really want to talk about because it's really sad. Number 4, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This one did have about a 65-ish% drop off from where it was last weekend, and obviously it had a little bit of a benefit of being open for 5 days instead of just the 3-day opening weekend, but still, it's not great. You know what I mean? Last weekend I talked about how it needs to, outgross Mission Impossible 3, and it still hasn't done that yet, which I feel like if it was holding over well, it would have done that already. Now, there could still be some hope considering I don't think that much of the August schedule will be too exciting, and I always feel like Mission Impossible may have people's attention a little bit more, and I don't know truly I don't know how much longer Sound of Freedom is going to last, and this movie is not too far away from that this weekend as far as the numbers, but still, it's still depressing to see. It made 19 million this weekend, which adds to a domestic total of 118 million. It is 15 million away from Mission Impossible 3, outgrossing that and going up in the Mission Impossible ranking worldwide. It has only been bumped up to $370 million, so they're still a long ways away from doubling that $290 million budget, and they still need 29 million until they outgross Mission Impossible 3. So I think it still has a reasonable chance to at least cross over the doubling point, but I really wanted this one to hold over well and make enough money where it was like, oh yeah, the Barbenheimer wave actually benefited this too. It's like, it's not really looking like it, and I'm hoping that the next couple weeks can change my mind. But, then I think, Haunted Mansion aside, you do have a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie coming out. The first Meg did pretty well. Will the Meg 2 recapture that success? Will Strays be like a Good Boys-esque kind of hit? I don't know, So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Kind of a bummer, but at least I don't know. I actually don't have a caveat for that. Let's move on to number 5, which is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Not Insidious. It dropped off a little lower than that, so we'll talk about that in just a second. It made 6.7 million, adding to a domestic total of 159 million. It still needs 67 million until it outgrosses Logan for James Mangold, and 20 million until it outgrosses Temple of Doom. It still can't do it domestically. But worldwide, now that it's sitting at 335 million, it has outgrossed Temple of Doom by 2 million and now needs 32 until it outgrosses Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I'm sure we'll be seeing that happen in just a week or two. Still pretty cool. James Mangold, it still needs 279 million until it outgrosses Logan there. So small successes for this big flop. Number 6, we have Insidious, the Red Door. Like I said, I should have known it would have dropped off, just enough where, because Indiana Jones was just looking statistically like it was holding over better than Insidious did, so I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. It made 6.5 million, not too far off from Indy actually, which adds to a domestic total of 71 million. It has outgrossed Insidious: The Last Key by 4 million. It needs 12 million now until it outgrosses Insidious Chapter 2. Worldwide, it is sitting at 155 million. Pretty damn good. It still needs 6 million until it outgrosses Insidious 2 there. So I'm thinking, next weekend we should for sure, or I don't know, next weekend or the weekend after, it will for sure become like the highest grossing Insidious film, both domestically and worldwide, which is pretty damn exciting if you're a fan and you really like this one. I wasn't the biggest fan of this, but I am at least glad that it is just cool to see that this franchise never really lost financial steam, I guess. It still had that core fan base, which is pretty cool, which I am technically a part of since I've enjoyed at least 3/5 of this series. Let's move on to number 7, which is Elemental, continuing to surprise, but I'm not sure for how much longer. I don't think they can pull a miracle at this point. It made 5 million, which adds to a domestic total of 137 million. Still needs 15 million until it outgrosses Cars 3. Worldwide, another big bump up to 356 million. So they are so close. They're 44 million away from at least doubling the listed budget of $200 million. But maybe it can squeak by that, but like we always say on this show, especially for budgets this bloated, especially for Disney, we have no idea how much more they actually would need, maybe $500 million, and then they're good, but it does look like it's slowing down. I am impressed, though, that it has held on for this long, not just domestically, but then the bumps worldwide. That is obviously very impressive, and it only needs 7 million until it outgrosses A Bug's Life, which, hey, it's getting past some of these other low grossing Pixar ones, which is at least, a little better than where it was when it opened up and we were all fearing the worst. But still, it just never quite made it. Not like number 8, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse making $2 million, adding to a domestic total of $375 million. It has outgrossed Spider-Man 2 now by $2 million and now needs $15 million until it outgrosses Far From Home. Worldwide, it is sitting at $675 million. So $25 million away from getting to $700 million worldwide, which is pretty damn cool. It still needs $33 million until it outgrosses The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So a little bit more of an uphill battle for that, but domestically, it was able to get the other two Spider-Man films. So that's cool, at least. Let's move right along to number 9, which is Transformers Rise the Beast, making $1.1 million, adding to a domestic total of $155 million, so $90 million away from Age of Extinction. Worldwide, it is now sitting at $427 million, so $38 million away from Bumblebee. I don't know, man. Like, I'm awaiting like the August 4th Japanese release, because that's the last place it says on IMDb it has to release, and it'll be out of the top 10, and I won't be able to talk about it for this show, the context of the top 10 here. But I'm keeping an eye on it. I want to see if it does bump up a little bit more, because I'd love to see it. I don't even know if it would be enough to even cross over $500 million, but I would just love to see just a little bit more love for this thing. I know they're prepping, I think it's available on digital now, and they're prepping like the physical Blu-ray release of this movie, which I will be getting because I did have fun with this. So I'm hoping maybe there can be some other signs of success. Maybe, I didn't really hear anything when Dungeons and Dragons, another Paramount film, was kind of sandwiched between these big movies, and it kind of suffered because of that, though it did have a little decent bit of a following in the theaters. I didn't hear anything when it hit Paramount Plus or Blu-ray if it was like, oh, big uptick or whatever. And what this Dungeons and Dragons and Mission Impossible have in common is, well, Paramount releasing it at like the worst times possible. Dungeons and Dragons came out after John Wick, before Mario. Mission Impossible, it came out after Indy, kinda. It had a little bit of a buffer, but it's right before what we just talked about, Barbenheimer. And then Transformers, it's coming out right after Spider-Man, and, right before The Flash, which obviously, that wasn't a big hit. That was a big flop. That's why it's no longer in the top 10. But still, the fact that The Flash did take money away from Transformers, the Paramount released these movies at like the worst times imaginable, and it's just a really big bummer, because I've enjoyed all the Paramount films that have come out. It's kind of a shame that it's looking like, I guess, Scream 6 might be their most successful one, just based off of that's a lower budget and it did very well, and it's just a big shame. They have these big expensive movies that are all very good and deserve, good attention, and they just get forgotten, sandwiched in with everything else. Big bummer. Paramount was kind of looked at as like a big winner last year with like Smile and Top Gun Maverick, and now it's like they're clinging on for dear life and they can't make it. Anyways, let's close out the video with number 10, No Hard Feelings, making $1.07 million, adding to a domestic total of $49 million, $34 million away from Good Boys, director's previous film. Worldwide, it is sitting at $82 million, so $29 million away from Good Boys. It is $8 million shy of doubling its $45 million budget. At this point, I don't know if that is exactly what they need, or if they were able to cheap out on some of the marketing, or if they do need double, like we always say on the show. I don't know, but I think I think a lot of people are really jazzed up by the fact that there is like a solid audience for like these kind of comedies. The fact that it can make 80 million worldwide if you have a decent star, solid word of mouth, or like an interesting marketing, hook, something like that. I think it would just look better if it doubled that budget, though. But, it's about to leave the top 10, so I'm doubtful, unless it does well on VOD sales. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I am once again going with Barbie. Number 2, Oppenheimer. Then number 3, I think, will be Haunted Mansion. Number 4, Sound of Freedom. And number 5, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I unfortunately don't think that Talk to Me kind of has the kind of push marketing-wise, or kind of the influence from horror fans to crack into the top 5, especially with where the numbers kind of are for these movies that I predicted right here. So that's my predictions. What are yours? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.